Do you really think a human can pass this? The voice was sharp, clipped, almost metallic. It echoed across the crystalline chamber, bouncing off walls that seemed to shimmer like liquid silver. Only one way to find out. Another voice replied, soft and almost melodic, but threaded with tension. Kael stepped into the room, shoulders back, eyes scanning the bizarre alien architecture. The ceiling rippled like the surface of a disturbed pond, faintly illuminating floating glyphs that twisted and turned in slow, impossible patterns. The air smelled faintly of ozone and iron. His pulse raced, not from fear but from anticipation. He grinned. Then let's test them. The first alien, tall and angular, turned its head in what could almost pass for curiosity. Its eyes, a swirling mix of gold and violet, narrowed. You do not understand the rules. The exam is beyond even the combined intellect of our species. Kael smirked. Funny, humans have a way of doing the impossible. A tense silence fell. The chamber vibrated faintly as if aware of the challenge. Kael's hand brushed the edge of a console, and tiny sparks danced between his fingers. Not enough to burn him. Enough to remind everyone here that humans were unpredictable. He glanced at the other observers. 6 alien species crowded around, each more intricate and intimidating than the last. Thin, spider-like creatures, luminous beings without visible mouths, horned entities radiating cold authority. All of them whispered, clicking, humming, communication beyond sound, beyond comprehension. All of them watched him. Kael felt the weight of a galaxy's expectation on his shoulders, and he loved it. This exam, the melodic alien said, stepping forward, tests thought itself. Logic, intuition, perception, memory, beyond your comprehension. Kael's jaw tightened, his grin widening. Then I guess I'll redefine comprehension. The chamber door sealed behind him with a deep hum. He felt the pulse of energy lock him in. The glyphs above spun faster, forming patterns that twisted the air like a living maze. Lunch will be over before you even touch the first question, the angular alien hissed. Kael's eyes flicked to the floating glyphs. He inhaled. He let the sensation of impossibility wash over him, then smiled again. Good, I eat problems for breakfast. He crouched slightly, fingertips grazing the glyphs. They flared in recognition, a silent acknowledgement of challenge. The air thickened. A low, resonant vibration filled the chamber. Kael knew. This wasn't just a test of intellect. It was a test of nerve perception, human unpredictability. Observe, hissed the angular alien. No one has lasted past the first cycle. Their minds? Collapse. Kael chuckled softly, almost to himself. Then they've clearly never met a human named Kael. The first glyph pulsed and the exam began. Patterns twisted in 3 dimensions, shifting faster than the eye could follow. Each pattern whispered multiple solutions at once. None correct until an impossible combination clicked. Kael blinked. Not from confusion, but to reset his mind, to slice through the noise. Time stretched. Or maybe it snapped. He didn't care. His mind danced across probabilities, algorithms, intuition intertwined. He imagined shapes forming answers. He felt logic twist, bend, snap. And then he wrote. Not on paper, not on a screen. He drew lines through the air. Symbols, sequences, decisions that had never existed except now in his grasp. The aliens recoiled. Not out of fear exactly, but shock, awe, disbelief. Their impossible exam, bending around him, bowing to him. Impossible, hissed the angular alien. It cannot be done. Kael turned, shoulders loose, hands in his pockets. It's done, he said simply. A pulse of certainty radiated from him. Before lunch, the chamber trembled. The glyphs stilled. The silence was heavier than the vibrations from before, stretching into a question that hung in the air. What now? Kael knew he had crossed a threshold. Not just for him, but for humans. The galaxy had built a cage, called it impossible, and he had walked through it, smiling, confident, untouchable. But then from the shadows, a low hum echoed. Different. Dangerous. The voice of something older than all the aliens present. Something that had been waiting. Watching. You've passed the first test, human, it said. But the exam has only begun. Kael's grin widened, sharper this time. Good. I love a challenge. And somewhere in the twisted architecture of the chamber, the first ripple of an entirely new threat began to stir. Kael's eyes followed the shimmer of the glyphs, each one now moving independently, twisting like tiny galaxies in the air. He could hear the whispers of the observers, clicks, hums, and resonances that seemed to probe his mind, but he blocked them out. Focused. Human focus wasn't just mental, it was instinct, intuition, a swagger that no alien algorithm could predict. You think this is merely a puzzle? The tall, angular alien's voice was sharp, reverberating across the chamber. Its limbs twitched with controlled agitation. This is a cognitive crucible. Every layer you solve triggers 3 more. Your mind will tear itself apart trying to keep up. Kael crouched slightly, stretching his fingers as if warming up for a fight. Then it's a good thing I like puzzles, he said. Especially ones that think they can beat me. He reached out, touching the first glyph. It pulsed violently like it resented his human touch. The chamber shifted. Walls folded into angles that shouldn't exist. Surfaces reflecting impossible perspectives. A maze of light and logic expanded before him, each pattern demanding solutions in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Kael's brain snapped into motion. He imagined each possible sequence as a wave, letting intuition surf the impossible currents. Patterns that would have frozen a council of 10,000 alien minds bent around him, revealing answers he didn't just see. He felt them. A whisper of doubt threaded through him for a fraction of a second. This is alien, not human. What if I can't think their way? He swallowed it. Human thought was adaptive, unpredictable. Kael smiled almost gently. They don't get it yet, he murmured. I don't need to think their way. I think my way, and it works. The first glyph shattered into a cascade of luminous sparks. The chamber echoed with a low vibration, almost like applause or a warning. Kael didn't pause. He touched the next one. And the next. Each pulse of light tested memory, intuition, reaction speed, and a kind of creativity that the aliens had thought impossible. The angular alien hissed, clicking rapidly. This human rewrites the rules as he goes. No one has ever met a human, Kael interjected casually, sliding through the next puzzle. Exactly. The glyphs twisted faster. Time itself seemed to stutter. Kael realized the exam was adaptive. It learned as he learned, bending, shifting, trying to find a crack in his logic. The pulse in the room grew heavier, almost sentient. Suddenly the floor vibrated violently. A deep resonance rolled through the chamber. Kael steadied himself, eyes narrowing. You are clever, said a new voice. It was soft, almost silky, yet it carried an authority that made the chamber itself seem to shiver. But intellect alone will not save you. You will need understanding, comprehension beyond knowledge. Kael tilted his head, curious. Then I guess I'll invent comprehension as I go. A wave of patterns surged toward him, each more chaotic, threatening to overwhelm the mind. He stepped forward, intuition guiding him. Lines of thought spiraled in impossible loops, yet he navigated each with a confidence that was distinctly human. He noticed the subtle, almost imperceptible patterns that others had ignored, the spaces between the chaos. This human sees the gaps, the angular alien whispered, almost reverent. Not the sequence. The nothing. The absence of constraint. Kael felt a strange thrill. Humans weren't just problem solvers. Humans thrived in ambiguity and chaos, in the impossible, and right now that skill was a weapon. The chamber's light dimmed, leaving only the glyphs glowing. A low hum filled the space, vibrating in harmony with Kael's heartbeat. He smiled, feeling the tension in the room coil around him like a living thing. A luminous alien observer floated closer. Its voice was musical but tinged with fear. How do you do it? Our simulations predicted collapse within minutes. Kael's grin widened. Because humans aren't simulations. We're decisions, action, and sometimes... He paused, watching a glyph fold neatly under his touch. We're chaos with a plan. Suddenly the walls flickered. A shadow moved across the ceiling, something massive, unseen, ancient. Kael felt a chill, not of fear but of recognition. The exam had layers beyond even the alien's comprehension. Something older was watching, waiting for a misstep. Kael didn't flinch. He crouched, focused, and let his mind ride the currents of impossible logic. Each pulse of the glyphs became a rhythm, a song he could follow. He understood it in ways the aliens couldn't. Not yet. And then, before any alien could react, the first stage of the exam collapsed. Patterns folded inward, solutions crystallizing in moments that had seemed eternal. Kael straightened, dusted imaginary sparks from his sleeve, and smiled at the stunned council of alien observers. "Not bad for lunch," he said. "You sure you want to try the next course?" The angular alien's eyes flared violet. "This human? He is rewriting the exam. He should not exist at this level." Kael leaned back, arms crossed, swagger in every movement. "Existence is overrated. But winning? That's mandatory." From the ceiling's shadows, a voice rumbled again, deeper and more deliberate. "Impressive, human. But every victory summons a consequence. Are you ready to meet yours?" Kael's grin sharpened, his mind already racing ahead. "I don't just meet consequences. I turn them into opportunities." The chamber shivered. The next layer of the exam waited, and with it, the unseen force that had been watching all along stirred closer. Kael knew one truth, clearer than ever. The real challenge was only beginning. Kael's eyes flicked across the chamber. The walls no longer shimmered merely with light. They shimmered with thought. Images, emotions, half-formed memories, even fears he had never spoken to anyone, all rippled across the surfaces. The exam was evolving, shifting from a test of logic into a test of mind and soul. "You cannot withstand this," hissed the angular alien. Its limbs trembled, not with exertion but with sheer disbelief. "Every human before you fractured. They broke." Kael shrugged, walking forward as if the chamber were a casual stroll through a park. "I've broken worse things than walls and rules before breakfast," he said. "Bring it." The luminous alien observer floated closer, hovering with a cautious elegance. "You don't understand the full extent. The exam doesn't just challenge intellect. It challenges identity, your perception of yourself, your reality, your morality." Kael's grin was sharp, effortless. "Good, I've got plenty of identity, reality, and morality to spare." A pulse of light shot from the ceiling, splitting into a dozen tendrils, each one probing his mind, probing his memories, his instincts. Kael felt the tug of doubt creep in like ice around his spine. "I can't let this touch me." Not even a flicker, he inhaled, grounding himself in what he knew best: humanity. Humans weren't perfect, they were impulsive, chaotic, irrational. But that chaos was alive. It was a weapon he wielded better than anyone here. Kael stepped into the tendrils of light, letting them wash over him. They tried to twist his thoughts, rearrange his memories, manipulate his fears. They whispered failure. They whispered surrender. He laughed softly. "You're cute," he said. But wrong. Kael's mind went quiet. Not blank, but focused. He visualized the tendrils as simple strings of light, bending them, folding them, redirecting them back to the source. The pulse recoiled, confused. It wasn't prepared for resistance that came from instinct, not calculation. The angular alien hissed, voice trembling. "Impossible, he bends the exam itself." Kael grinned wider. "Not bends, improves, faster, cleaner, better." Then the chamber shivered. A new presence entered, not the aliens, not the exam, but something far older. Shadows pooled in the corners, whispering in a language Kael didn't know but somehow understood. A low vibration thrummed through the floor, deep and omnipresent. "You are clever." The voice resonated from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. "Too clever. But cleverness is no shield against truth." Kael tilted his head, curiosity sparking. "Truth, huh? Let's see if I like it." Images flashed before him. Worlds crumbling, stars collapsing, civilizations reduced to whispers. The exam wasn't just a test. It was a warning, a gate, and now it was alive with judgment. Every puzzle Kael solved, every pattern he mastered, every layer he bent to his will, summoned a ripple across the galaxy, seen by the unseen force lurking in the shadows. Kael felt a pang of tension, but not fear. Fear was for those who hadn't learned to play chaos like a game. He adjusted, leaned into it, smiled. "Pressure makes diamonds, right?" The luminous alien floated closer, voice quivering. "You're not human, Kael. No one is supposed to endure this. Your mind, your spirit. It's rewriting the rules of existence." Kael laughed, sharp and confident. "Not rewriting rules. Breaking limits. Humans do that all the time." Suddenly, the glyphs around him exploded in a cascade of cascading light. Every possible pattern, every possible solution, every hidden layer of the exam unfolded before him simultaneously. The chamber vibrated violently, threatening to collapse. Yet Kael moved with calm precision, navigating through impossible logic, intuitive leaps, and raw perception. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed in a blur. Time itself seemed to splinter. Kael realized the exam wasn't linear. It wasn't even real in the traditional sense. It was a living entity, testing not just his mind, but his will, his identity, his human essence. A shadow brushed across the ceiling, something massive, ancient, with a presence that made even the alien observers quiver. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. You think to master the impossible, yet your victories have consequences. Kael didn't flinch. Then let's meet them head on. He reached out, not to fight, not to flee, but to engage. His mind worked like a blade, slicing through layers of illusion, chaos, and manipulation. Each solution he created wasn't just correct, it was audacious. Every glyph responded to him, bending, collapsing, acknowledging his control. The angular alien clicked its mandibles in disbelief. This is beyond our design. He has transcended the exam itself. Kael's grin widened. Sweat traced his temple, but his posture was unyielding. Transcendence is overrated. Survival is sexy. The ancient shadow recoiled slightly, curiosity sharpening its presence. Kael could feel it watching, measuring, learning. It wasn't just an opponent, it was a teacher. Or maybe a predator. Either way, Kael had made the first move. The chamber settled, glyphs still flickering faintly. Kael leaned against a crystalline wall, exhaling slowly. The aliens were silent. Even the unseen force paused, as if intrigued by his audacity. Kael's eyes sparkled. "All right," he muttered. "Show me what you've got next." Somewhere in the shadows, the low rumble returned. "The exam has only begun. The real test will demand your heart, human. Are you ready to pay its price?" Kael smiled. "I don't pay, I win." That's the human way, and in that moment, the first whisper of the exam's true nature began to unfold. A force older than the galaxy, older than time, staring directly at the human who had no intention of yielding. Kael leaned back against the crystalline wall, letting his eyes drift over the chamber. The glyphs pulsed softly, almost impatiently. He knew the exam had grown restless, testing not just his mind, but his patience, his instinct, his swagger. Humans weren't just clever. They were untouchable when they owned their own rules. The angular alien clicked its mandibles, a sound sharp enough to slice through the tension. This human, he survived the first layers. That is not permitted. Our council will convene. Kael smirked, stretching. Council? Cute. Guess they've never met a human who doesn't play by their rules. From above, a shimmer of movement appeared. The chamber expanded, walls bending into impossible shapes, folding space to reveal a platform suspended in void-like darkness. One by one, the alien observers ascended, their forms glowing and twisting as they entered the arena of the Council of Shadows. Kael felt the weight of countless generations in the room. He could sense centuries of planning, strategy, calculation, all aimed at one truth. Humans were meant to fail. A horned alien, taller than any he had seen, stepped forward. Its voice boomed with authority. "Human, you have disrupted our balance. The exam is not yours to conquer. You have breached rules that no species has survived. Explain yourself." Kael's grin widened. "Explain myself? I'm doing fine. You should try it sometime," the angular alien hissed. "Do you even understand what you have done? Every solution you create rewrites the parameters of our civilization. Entire protocols are unraveling because of you." Kael's eyes sparkled with defiance. Unraveling? Or improving? There's a difference. Humans call it innovation. The horned alien's eyes narrowed. "Innovation does not defy inevitability?" Kael leaned forward. "Then call me inevitable." His words were calm, dripping with confidence. He had swagger, yes, but beneath it was precision. He was human, unpredictable, unstoppable. Suddenly the chamber shifted again. Light fractured into thousands of shards, each one showing a puzzle Kael had never seen before. Multidimensional, simultaneous, impossible for anyone but him to even perceive. "You think your mind can contain this?" hissed the angular alien. "This is beyond cognition. Beyond sanity." Kael's grin deepened. "Sanity is a suggestion. I don't follow suggestions, I follow results." He lunged into the first shard, letting instinct and intellect blend. Lines of thought became action. Each puzzle demanded memory, intuition, and a certain reckless audacity that only humans possessed. The glyphs shimmered, bending to him, acknowledging him, and then the shadows stirred. From the far corners of the chamber, a new presence emerged, colossal and unseen. It wasn't alien, at least not in the way the council was. Its voice rumbled like tectonic plates grinding, deep and patient. "You are clever, human," it said. "Clever enough to survive. For now. But you misunderstand. The exam is a gate. Every victory has a cost. Kael didn't flinch. Then I'll pay it with style. The horned alien stepped closer, voice trembling with barely contained fear. You've awakened something we have long contained. Something older than the stars. Your survival will not be tolerated by the true examiners. Kael raised an eyebrow. True examiners? Sounds like the universe has a lot of committees. I hope they like humans. The chamber seemed to pulse in response to his words, almost as if acknowledging him personally. Kael realized this was no longer just an exam of intellect. It was a game of presence, perception, and dominance. He wasn't competing, he was redefining the competition. A shard of light expanded before him, showing the future consequences of each decision. Worlds crumbling, civilizations collapsing, aliens failing, humans rising, and somewhere in the shadows, an observer older than any memory studying him. Kael's grin never faltered. Consequences are overrated. I prefer results. The angular alien's eyes glowed violet with frustration. He does not fear failure. He does not submit, he evolves through it. Kael's mind worked faster than ever. He solved the first layer of the Council's test before they even realized it existed. The chamber erupted in energy pulses as the impossible collapsed, yielding to his command. Before lunch, Kael muttered under his breath, the words a mantra as the Council reeled. Always before lunch, the horned alien's voice cracked, echoing across the chamber. Impossible. He's beyond impossible. How? How can one human exist at this scale? Kael's grin sharpened. By being human. And then a shadow moved across the ceiling, more deliberate, more ominous than before. The unseen ancient examiner had taken notice fully. The presence was no longer subtle. It was engaged, curious, evaluating. Kael could feel its gaze piercing him, probing every corner of his mind. You are extraordinary, human, it said, but extraordinary alone will not suffice. The next stage will demand everything you are. Kael's eyes narrowed, mind racing. He already knew this. Every puzzle, every test, every observer had been preparation. And he was ready, not just to survive, but to dominate. The chamber trembled. The Council faltered. The shadows thickened. And Kael, standing tall, grinning with impossible confidence, whispered, Then let's make it interesting. The chamber had grown silent. But the silence was heavy, like the calm before a storm that could tear the galaxy apart. Kael's pulse thrummed in time with the flickering glyphs. The Council's whispers had vanished, replaced by something older, something infinite, watching him with patient, almost predatory curiosity. You've survived layers no species should endure. The voice rumbled from the shadows, shaking the walls. You have mastered intellect. But can you master the heart? Kael tilted his head, grin sharpening into a predator's smile. Heart? You mean instinct, courage, willpower, you mean human. The chamber shifted violently, space folded like paper. Walls disappearing into voids, floors stretching into infinity. Kael felt his stomach twist. This was no longer a puzzle to be solved with logic alone. Every step forward now demanded judgment, empathy, and precision in a storm of chaos. From the void emerged figures, simulations of human lives he had known, all twisting in impossible patterns. Friends, strangers, even his own reflection, calling out failures he had never committed. The chamber whispered fear, guilt, regret. You will choose, the voice said. Every choice defines a path. Every wrong path destroys worlds. Every hesitation costs lives. Can you bear the weight? Kael clenched his jaw, eyes narrowing. Humans had fear. Humans had doubt. But humans also had resilience. And swagger. He stepped forward. I don't hesitate, I act. That's what humans do. The first illusion flickered. A world, vast and bright, teetered on the edge of collapse. Kael saw lifeforms caught in impossible cycles. Civilizations at the brink. The exam demanded he decide which survived. His mind raced. Logic alone was insufficient. He needed intuition, perception, and daring audacity. He reached out, fingers brushing the flickering projection. He didn't calculate, he felt. He understood the rhythm, the flow, the invisible threads binding life. With a swift motion, he rewrote the cycle. The collapse reversed. Life surged. Order emerged from chaos. Impressive, the voice murmured, almost contemplative. But now comes temptation. Kael turned. Shadows gathered into forms that whispered power. Wealth, domination, immortality. Any human could have faltered here. Most would have. Most would have sacrificed everything they were to survive. Kael laughed softly. Cute, but I don't bargain with shadows. I make my own deals with reality. The chamber shivered. Time fractured. Moments stretched into eternities. His memories, fears, and instincts were pulled into impossible loops. And yet Kael moved with fluid confidence. Each choice he made rippled forward, stabilizing the chaos, bending the impossible to his will. The angular alien's voice trembled. He feels the exam, he manipulates it with his being. Kael smirked, letting the chaos swirl around him. Being human has its perks. You'll see. Suddenly, the void convulsed violently. A shadow larger than any star swept across the chamber, pressing against him like gravity turned conscious. Kael staggered slightly, adrenaline surging. The ancient presence had engaged fully. This was no longer a test. This was a confrontation. You have spirit, it said, voice like tectonic plates grinding. But spirit alone cannot endure the consequences. Can you sacrifice what is precious to survive? Kael's mind raced. This wasn't about intellect or instinct. This was about integrity, empathy, and ruthless courage, the elements that made humans unpredictable. He reached deep past pride, past ego, past fear, and acted. A projection of himself, a potential flawed version, collapsed into the void, shielding a civilization in the process. Kael didn't flinch. Humans didn't flinch. The chamber fell silent. The void stilled. Kael straightened, chest heaving, grin wide, dangerous. Sacrificed what needed to be sacrificed. That's what humans do. The angular alien clattered its limbs in disbelief. No species could endure the moral weight of this trial. Kael's eyes scanned the chamber. Glyphs pulsed faintly, patterns bending around him. The unseen presence shifted, curiosity peaked, evaluating. Kael realized something fundamental. The exam wasn't just intelligence, not just perception. It was human essence distilled into action. Logic could bend, strength could overwhelm. But only humans could endure chaos and emerge victorious by sheer audacity and integrity. You understand, human, the voice finally rumbled, that the next stage will demand everything. Every skill, every instinct, every ounce of your essence. Will you continue? Kael's grin sharpened, teeth flashing in the dim light. Sweat traced his brow, but his stance was unyielding. Everything? That's my specialty. Let's turn the impossible into routine. From the void, a low vibration began to emanate, resonating with the chamber, the glyphs, and Kael himself. The next stage was approaching. The challenge, older than stars, had fully awakened. Kael exhaled slowly, confidence radiating. Time to see what humans are really capable of. And somewhere in the shadows, the ancient examiner shifted closer, intrigued. The human had survived intellect, endured perception, mastered chaos, and now, the true test of heart had been passed, but the exam had only begun. The chamber trembled with energy, each glyph pulsating like a heartbeat. Kael's hands hovered over the floating patterns, his eyes scanning the shifting symbols with a predator's precision. The exam had evolved. It wasn't just testing him anymore. It was reacting to him, bending around his every move, trying desperately to find a flaw. You have done the impossible, hissed the angular alien, limbs quivering. No mind, no species, no intelligence has ever survived this long. You distort reality itself. Kael smirked, stepping into the center of the chamber, letting the glyphs wrap around him. Reality is overrated. I prefer to improve it. Suddenly the shadows pulsed. The ancient examiner, the presence older than stars, emerged fully, a wave of consciousness that pressed against Kael's mind like gravity turned sentient. It radiated power, curiosity, and judgment all at once. You are persistent, human, the voice rumbled, deeper than mountains, vibrating through every particle of the chamber. But persistence alone cannot master creation. Can you reshape it without breaking yourself? Kael's grin widened. Humans didn't just survive impossible odds, they thrived in them. Logic bent, dimensions warped, probability shattered. He wasn't intimidated. He thrived in the chaos the exam unleashed. I don't break, Kael said, voice steady. I adapt. I conquer. I create. He reached out, fingertips grazing the glyphs. The chamber reacted instantly, responding to him, as if recognizing a new authority. He didn't just solve the patterns, he remade them. Equations twisted into flowing designs. Probabilities merged into possibilities, and the impossible became merely a starting point. The angular alien clicked, voice trembling. He is not just solving the exam, he is reprogramming it. No intelligence can do this. Kael ignored them, focusing entirely on the pulse in the chamber. Every flicker of light, every vibration of thought, every resonance of energy became a thread he could weave. He bent the very architecture of the exam, creating paths that had never existed, solutions that defied time, space, and the observer's comprehension. "You understand nothing of us," hissed the horned alien. "This is not a puzzle. This is judgment. Every choice has consequences for life, for galaxies, for civilizations." Kael's grin sharpened. "Then I guess you'll have to redefine judgment too. Humans write consequences, they don't obey them." A ripple of the ancient presence moved through the chamber. Kael felt it probing, testing, evaluating every instinct, every decision, every iota of his being. The exam had become a living entity, a force older than stars, and it was learning from him. "You are extraordinary," it rumbled. "Extraordinary, but not infallible. One misstep and the web you have woven will unravel. One hesitation and life itself will fracture." Kael's fingers danced through the glyphs. He could feel the weight of galaxies, the pulse of civilizations, the threads of countless futures flowing through his mind. And yet he moved with casual swagger, solving, bending, reshaping. Humans didn't flinch in the face of impossible stakes. They thrived there. The chamber shuddered violently, collapsing and reforming around him. Kael didn't falter. Each pulse of energy, each flicker of chaos became part of his rhythm. He understood the true essence of the exam. It wasn't just testing intellect, perception, or heart. It was testing the ability to create under pressure, to dominate chaos, to thrive where all others failed. "You wield creation," murmured the angular alien. "You manipulate not just patterns, but existence itself." Kael smiled. "Creation's just another problem waiting to be solved." The shadows stirred, forming shapes that mirrored Kael's own imagination, echoing his thoughts, anticipating his moves. But Kael didn't flinch. He embraced the challenge, bending the simulations, reshaping the probabilities, rewriting the impossible into the achievable. "You are ready," the ancient presence finally said. Voice like the shifting of stars. "But the final layer awaits. To pass, you must confront me, not as a mind, but as will. Can you endure what even intellect and instinct cannot measure?" Kael's grin was dangerous, electric. Sweat traced his temple, but his posture was unyielding. "I don't endure. I dominate. Let's see what you've got." The chamber trembled, the glyphs flaring brighter than any star, shadows twisting into impossible geometries. Kael's pulse synced with the rhythm of creation itself. The final stage, the confrontation with the force older than the galaxy, was about to begin. And Kael, human and unshakable, grinned with unrelenting swagger. Game on. The chamber had become a storm of light and shadow, a living cosmos bending and folding around Kael. Glyphs twisted like galaxies, patterns surged like cosmic tides, and the very air hummed with an intelligence older than stars. The ancient presence loomed, immense and patient, its voice resonating through the void. "You have endured intellect, perception, chaos, and heart," it rumbled. "Yet now the final truth awaits. Can you wield creation itself without succumbing to its weight?" Kael's grin sharpened, sweat tracing his brow but eyes bright with fierce clarity. "Creation's heavy? Funny. I've been lifting the impossible before breakfast. Let's see how heavy it really is." The chamber pulsed. The shadow solidified into impossible geometries, twisting around him. Every step Kael took bent probability. Every thought reshaped the environment. He moved with confidence, each gesture precise, each decision decisive. Humans didn't just survive, they defined survival. "You defy everything we have known," hissed the angular alien, trembling. You reshape existence itself." Kael chuckled. "Reshape? Nah, I just make it work better." The ancient presence surged, probing deeper than intellect could measure, seeking hesitation, fear, weakness. Kael felt the pressure of countless civilizations, lives balanced on infinitesimal threads. Every false move could shatter stars, collapse timelines, erase possibilities. And yet he smiled. Humans thrived in impossibility. Humans dominated it. "Will you break, human?" the voice asked, vibrating through his mind and soul. "Will you falter before what even gods fear?" Kael's grin widened. "I don't break, I master. That's what humans do." He extended his hands. The glyphs responded instantly, bending to his will.
Energy swirled, creating structures no alien mind had ever conceived.
Probabilities twisted, reshaping outcomes, bending chaos into symmetry. Kael wasn't just solving the exam, he was commanding it. You wield creation, the ancient voice said, awe threading its tone. You are beyond expectation. Kael's eyes sparkled. Sweat dripped, adrenaline surged, yet his posture was unshakable. Beyond expectation? Nah, that's just Tuesday for humans. The chamber trembled violently as the shadows coalesced into a single form, a being of pure consciousness, older than the galaxy itself. It loomed over Kael, probing his mind, weighing every thought, every instinct, every ounce of human audacity. You have proven intellect, perception, chaos, heart, but can you endure essence itself? Kael smiled, stepping forward, unflinching. Essence. That's my favorite part. He reached into the swirling vortex of impossible energy, touching creation itself. Patterns bent, unfolded, reformed. Probabilities aligned. The impossible trembled and then yielded. Time seemed to pause as Kael shaped reality with the unerring precision of human will and intuition. The ancient presence paused, sensing mastery unlike anything it had ever encountered. You command what should be beyond command. Kael straightened, chest heaving, eyes alight with triumph. Command? Maybe. Or maybe I just refuse to lose. Humans do that naturally. The chamber exploded with light, then settled into stillness. The glyphs pulsed in quiet acknowledgement. The shadows receded, and the presence, a force older than stars, contracted, leaving a single thought. Respect. You have mastered the impossible, it whispered. No species should achieve this, yet you have. Human. Kael exhaled slowly, a grin spreading across his face. And that's how humans do lunch. The council of aliens, trembling and wide-eyed, could only watch. A single truth resonated. The human mind was not only unpredictable, it was superior in audacity, resilience, and creativity. Kael had not just survived the exam, he had redefined it. Kael looked around the chamber, eyes glinting with swagger. Listen up, everyone. Impossible's just a suggestion. Humans make rules. The ancient presence pulsed once, then withdrew into the shadows, leaving Kael alone with the council. The impossible had bowed. The galaxy, once confident in its hierarchies and intellects, now had to reckon with the unpredictable brilliance of humanity. Kael stepped toward the exit, shoulders straight, mind sharp, grin unshakable. Every alien observer knew one undeniable fact. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated, and Kael, human and unstoppable, had just written a new law across the stars. No exam, no challenge, no force. Nothing is impossible when a human decides it isn't. The chamber door sealed behind him with a soft hum, leaving a silent galaxy to wonder, what comes next when humans aren't just participants but masters of everything? Kael's laughter echoed lightly through the corridors, confident, unstoppable, utterly human.